Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a glorious, glorious day so far. And we get right to it here with tomorrow being Good Friday and the crucifixion of our Lord Jesus Christ, and Sunday being the glorious day of his resurrection from the grave. Let's get down to some fact. A lot of people look at the Bible and non-Christians, atheists, and say it was written by man. If I tell you a story and you pass it on, within a day's time, that story's already been twisted and turned. It's not even the same story. Can you imagine 2,000 years from now? What would that story be? The story of the life and times and accounts of Jesus Christ is 2,000 years old. Look at the New Testament. Look at Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. They tell exactly the same stories. The stories are the same. The disciples' accounts of the life and time of Jesus Christ. They don't paint themselves in a very, very prestigious light, in a very good picture. Don't you think if they made the stories up, that they would maybe make themselves look a little bit better than they did? Betraying Jesus, falling asleep in the Garden of Gethsemane, rather than being there to give him support. Do you think they would have wrote down, we fell asleep. We weren't there. Let's look at the crucifixion. They put Jesus in removed him from the cross. They put him in his tomb. And they put a 2,000-pound stone over the entrance of that tomb. 2,000-pound stone. I mean, we have historians and archaeologists that have actually went back and to that time period, and it's confirmed. That's how they buried the dead back then. They rolled a 2,000-pound stone over the opening of the tomb, and that's what the disciples tell, the exact same story. Now, think of yourself in that time, that era, when Jesus was on earth and was crucified, as being a Roman guard, a centurion, and you were given orders. You were given orders to guard that tomb and don't let anyone in. What do you think if you disobeyed that order? You fell asleep and someone got in there and stole a body. What do you think would happen to you? It'd be a death sentence. So here we have a highly trained centurion guard standing in front of this 2,000-pound stone, and he's guarding the tomb of Jesus Christ, especially under the circumstances. Under no circumstances would he fall asleep. So let's give the non-believers let's give them their due here. Okay, the guard fell asleep. Now, can you imagine the sound of a 2,000-pound stone would make, the scraping as it's being moved and pushed and rolled away so the body of Jesus Christ could be stolen? You think that would have woke the guard up? Don't you think he would have woke up? Okay, let's continue on. Say, by some miraculous intervention, Mary Magdalene, the disciples come and they muster up this energy and they can move this 2,000-pound stone with all the noise it makes, and the guard doesn't wake up. And they steal the body. Do you know what the punishment for grave robbing was back then? They'd all been crucified. They'd all been murdered. They'd all been killed. Okay, but what does history tell us? There was no, the disciples went on to tell the story. There was no arrest made. There was no arrest made. So we have a centurion guard falling asleep, can't hear the sound of a 2,000-pound stone being rolled across the opening of the tomb of Jesus Christ. We have a missing body. Don't you think all the officials that put Jesus to death would have put out a mass search for that body? Don't you think if they stole it themselves and remove the body and put it in a different place, that would have been the end of the New Testament? Let's quickly go on. I don't want to ramble. Let's go quickly on to the resurrection. It's documented. The disciples 500 eyewitnesses seen Jesus after the resurrection. Now think of the time back then with the census in the day of 2,000 years ago of Jesus Christ. Only men were counted. So we have documented eyewitness testimony of 500 men who bore witness to seeing and speaking with Jesus Christ after his resurrection. Now, we're not counting women and children. Women and children weren't counted in the census, only men. So add in to the fact, women and men and children, the number is staggering. We're into the thousands now that are actually eyewitness accounts of seeing Jesus after the resurrection. Just some food for thought, just something for you non-believers to think about. The New Testament does not paint the disciples in a very lavishly living lifestyle. Don't you think if they made the whole thing up, they rather than being persecuted and put in prison and for telling the story, don't you think they would have made it a little different bit of a story? Don't you think if Jesus wasn't resurrected from the dead, New Testament would have ended? There wouldn't be a New Testament. You got eyewitness accounts. Factual 500 documented eyewitness accounts, and that's only men. Women and children were not counted in them days. Now, take into the account of men, women, and children that actually seen Jesus after the resurrection. We're into the thousands. Something to think about. Have a glorious, glorious day. Sunday, he is risen, and he's coming back. God bless everybody.